Chapter 1951. The tournament began. 6. Outside the gate. A black-clad man stopped in midair. He looked down at the imposing gate and gave a faint smile. However, just as he was about to enter the gate, two soldiers of the Jinyang kingdom stopped him. Stop, show us your identity seal. Go away. Boom. As soon as he snapped, the guards felt a powerful aura hit their chest and send them into the city gate. By the time they realized what happened, the man was gone. Come on, report to His Majesty that some unidentified man has intruded. A soldier stood up with difficulty, covering his wounded chest and gasping for breath. Then despite his injury, he tried to reach the field where the Four Kingdom tournament was being held. Fengyun City was small, so the black-clad man soon reached the crowded field. From a distance, he glimpsed a white-clad woman standing among the crowd. Just then, the white-clad woman seemed to perceive something and suddenly looked up only to see his affectionate eyes, and she felt her heart skip a beat. When she met his gaze, she forgot all the noises around and her eyes could only see the man in the sky. Miss Yun. Chi Su noticed Yun Luo Feng's abnormal behavior and followed her gaze only to see the godlike man in the sky. His first impression of this man was that he was powerful. Although wearing a mask, he still looked so powerful and domineering. Xiao Yefeng also saw the man in the sky. She frowned and complained, "This man is really shameless. He must have chased me here after finding out I came to Fengyun City." Curious about Yun Xiao's identity, a prince of the Jinyang kingdom turned to Xiao Yefeng when he heard her words. "Princess Feng, do you know the man?" "Yes," Xiao Yefeng sneered disdainfully, "this man covets me, dreams to get me, and asked my father to marry me to him. But why doesn't he take a look at himself? He is so ugly, of course I won't marry him." She didn't tell the prince that her father intended to give her to the man as a concubine. If this news was spread, everyone on the continent would laugh at her. As they spoke, the man in the sky had walked down slowly. His cold eyes were full of affection and his black eyes were fixed on the woman in white through the crowd. Fenger. He finally found her. He would never stay away from her in the rest of his life. Hearing Yun Xiao calling, Fenger, Xiao Yefeng thought he was calling her, her face filled with disgust. Xiao Yefeng haughtily raised her chin and said defiantly, "Ghost Emperor, I finally escaped from the Ziyu kingdom and came here. Why did you come here? Who allowed you to call me that? You shouldn't covet someone who will never belong to you just because my father respects you." The man looked at her with such tender eyes, so he surely wouldn't be offended by her words. Otherwise, her father would punish her. Hearing Xiao Yefeng's words, the crowd thought they knew what happened between them and looked at Yun Xiao with sympathy. Chapter 1952. The tournament began. 7. It turned out that the man had come here to pursue Xiao Yefeng. He seemed to have great strength, and his aura was terrifying. Unfortunately, he was so ugly that Xiao Yefeng didn't want to accept his love. Indeed, everyone heard when he called Feng, Not to mention Xiao Yefeng, everyone else thought Yun Xiao was calling the princess of the Ziyu kingdom. However, after seeing Yun Luo Feng, Yun Xiao's eyes could only see her. The noise around him was automatically blocked by him, and he directly walked to the beautiful woman in white. "Ghost Emperor, are you deaf? I said I don't like you. How can you?" Quote. Before Xiao Yefeng had finished speaking, the man walked past her and headed forward. Xiao Yefeng's face stiffened and her eyes widened in disbelief. How dare this damned man ignore her? Xiao Yefeng was furious. She turned her head and shouted angrily, "Ghost Emperor, stop! Are you trying to get my attention by playing hard to get? I tell you, it's impossible." However, to her anger, Yun Xiao didn't seem to hear her voice but just walked slowly to Yun Luo Feng. His voice was tender, and he was like a different person from the one she met in the Ziyu Kingdom's imperial palace. "Feng, I'm here." Yes, he was here. Yun Luo Feng suddenly rushed into Yun Xiao's arms, put her arms tightly around his neck, and kissed his thin lips. They were lost in this kiss and everyone around was dumbfounded. Didn't Xiao Yefeng say this man came for her? So it was not her. More shocked than anyone else, Xiao Yefeng nearly fainted in anger. She clenched her fists and her nails sank into the flesh. "Your Highness," the imperial maid Xiao Qi looked at her worriedly and called her carefully. Xiao Yefeng didn't seem to hear her. She just glared at Yun Luofeng and Yun Xiao, with hatred in her eyes. Of course, she didn't like Yun Xiao, so she wasn't angry about his intimate relationship with Yun Luofeng. What she was angry at was that this man made her lose face in public. She claimed that the Ghost Emperor came to find her, but he didn't even look at her and did such an indecent thing with another woman. How could she not feel angry? Yun Xiao, do you know this woman? Yun Luofeng asked with a faint smile as she withdrew her arms and pointed at Xiao Yefeng with her chin. Yun Xiao didn't notice Xiao Yefeng until then. He followed Yun Luofeng's gaze only to see a face contorted with anger. Looking carefully at Xiao Yefeng, he seemed to think as hard as he could, and finally he shook his head. I've never seen her. Xiao Yefeng's face turned purple. It was more aggravating to her than just ignoring her. She was just saying that he had a crush on her, but the next minute, the man said he had never seen her. How could he not know her? If he had never seen her, how could her father force her to be his concubine? In fact, Yun Xiao truly didn't know Xiao Yefeng. He did enter the Ziyu kingdom and fought two strong masters, but he only remembered the emperor of the Ziyu kingdom besides the two strong masters. Even if Xiao Yefeng was present at the time, he wouldn't have noticed her. So, Yun Xiao didn't know the woman. Chapter 1953. I'll only have one wife in my life. Ironically, Xiao Yefeng had no idea that her father decided to give her to Yun Xiao as a concubine without asking for Yun Xiao's opinion. Yun Xiao never knew she existed. Haha, Xiao Yefeng sneered, you don't dare to say what you've done because this woman is around, right? If you didn't have a crush on me, why did you let my father force me to be your woman? Her father told her that the Ghost Emperor had been looking for a woman who was probably his wife. However, she always thought that the woman who took a fancy to the Ghost Emperor must be extremely ugly too. But she didn't expect that woman was Yun Luofeng. At the thought of it, Xiao Yefeng felt like she was being slapped in the face. Yun Xiao's face was frighteningly cold, and his aura suddenly changed. Xiao Yefeng, seeing his sister uttering stupid words, Xiao Zixuan tried to stop her, fearing that the fool would bring trouble to the Ziyu kingdom because of her stupidity. Apologize to the Ghost Emperor. Apologize. Those who didn't know Yun Xiao's identity were shocked by Xiao Zixuan's words. He actually asked the Ziyu kingdom's princess to apologize to this unidentified man. No way. Xiao Yefeng was very angry. She stared at Yun Luofeng coldly. I tell you, what you have got is a man I don't want. Do you think your man is really crazy about you? All I have to do is to crook my finger and he will come to me. Even Xiao Zixuan was ashamed of Xiao Yefeng's words. Since the Ghost Emperor showed up, he hadn't looked at her and even claimed that he didn't know her. How could she say such shameless words? In fact, Xiao Zixuan didn't know about Yun Xiao's real strength, because he wasn't in the Ziyu kingdom that day when Yun Xiao fought those two strong masters. And the emperor of the Ziyu kingdom kept what happened that day a secret to save his face. Therefore, he only knew that his father respected the Ghost Emperor a lot, but didn't know the real reason. If he had known that even the two strong masters of the Ziyu kingdom couldn't resist the Ghost Emperor, he would never give Xiao Yefeng a chance to say a word. Yun Luofeng gave a faint smile and her black eyes were filled with a wicked light. Yun Xiao, it seems that you had a good time when I was not around. She forgot that Yun Xiao had a one-track mind in front of her, but Yun Xiao had taken her joke seriously. At that moment, he felt so nervous, and killing intent appeared in his cold black eyes. Of course, this killing intent was not directed at Yun Luofeng. Are you from the Ziyu kingdom? Yun Xiao's voice was so cold that the temperature around him dropped a bit. Xiao Yefeng sneered, you know the answer. It seems. The Ziyu kingdom should disappear. Yun Xiao's tone was murderous. I didn't expect that the emperor of the Ziyu kingdom would give me women as a gift. Xiao Yefeng was stunned. Her father gave him women as a gift. What did he mean? Didn't he force her father to do it? I have only one wife in my life, said Yun Xiao, turning his eyes to Xiao Yefeng. It was the first time he looked at Xiao Yefeng, but Xiao Yefeng immediately learned what fear was from that look. Anyone who tries to undermine our affection shall die. His words were as concise as ever and he released a murderous aura that made Xiao Yefeng's body shiver. At that moment, she remembered the grand spectacle when Yun Xiao fought with the two strong masters that day. Chapter 1954, trust. What do you want to do? She backed up 2 steps, trembling all over. Yuan Shao was expressionless, his eyes chilly, and he looked like a god of death who could easily harvest people's lives in the blink of an eye. Ghost Emperor, Xiao Zixuan turned pale and hurried forward. My sister is young and ignorant. Please forgive her. Besides, she is the princess of the Ziyu kingdom. You'll be in trouble if you kill her. Even though Xiao Zixuan didn't like this sister, he would not watch her being killed in front of him. Yuan Shao didn't speak but approached Xiao Zixuan and Xiao Yefeng with a cold face. On the stage, Cheng Feiyong didn't want to meddle in the affairs of other countries, but after all, Xiao Yefeng was the princess of the Ziyu kingdom and came to attend the Four Kingdom tournament. How could he let her be killed here? So, he cleared his throat and said, no matter what grudge you bear against each other, please settle it after the Four Kingdom tournament. Then our Jinyang kingdom won't interfere. Yuan Shao looked at Cheng Feiyong coldly and didn't stop. A fierce wind hit Xiao Yefeng and made her shoot out like an arrow from the string. Blood was pouring out of her mouth. Cheng Feiyong's face changed. To his surprise, this man dared to defy his words. Yuan Shao. Just then, young Luo Feng's voice came from behind him, just teach her a lesson. Don't beat her to death for now. She falsely accused me, said Yuan Shao with some grievances. Just teach her a lesson. I want to handle her myself. Young Luo Feng squinted. She coveted her man and slandered her. How could she let her get away with it? Seeing Yuan Shao's aggrieved face, young Luo Feng whispered to comfort him, do you think I believe her words? We've been together for over 10 years and have been through countless trials and hardships. How could my trust in you be broken by a few words from someone? Hearing young Luo Feng's words, Yuan Shao was finally relieved. Under the mask, a gentle smile appeared on his face. Okay, I'm all yours. Hearing his words, everyone felt their hearts skip a beat. This man was as horrible as a ghost, but even he could be so docile. Yes, looking at Yuan Shao, the word that came to their minds was, docile. Xiao Yefeng's body trembled harder, and she couldn't help remembering the first time she saw him when he was as ruthless as a ghost. At that time, he, like the king of the world, was so domineering and powerful, as if he could take away someone's life in the blink of an eye. No one of the Ziyu kingdom would have imagined that the ruthless killer could be so gentle. This is Fengyun City. Cheng Feiyong pounded on the table and jumped to his feet, his face harsh and cold. Young master, you can solve your personal affairs after the tournament. As if not hearing Cheng Feiyong's words, Yuan Shao had walked up to Xiao Yefeng. His eyes were cold and commanding. He, like a king, coldly stared at Xiao Yefeng. He looked at her as if looking at a dead person. Boom. Yuan Shao stepped on Xiao Yefeng's chest without any mercy. Ghost Emperor. Xiao Zixuan felt Yuan Shao's awesome power. Fear welled up within him. He clenched his teeth. Please spare her life. Chapter 1955. Death of Xiao Yefeng 1. Young Luo Feng only said not to kill her. But she didn't say he couldn't disable her. Still cold-faced, Yuan Shao showed no mercy. He moved his leg and kicked Xiao Yefeng, who was lying on the ground, to the air. With a thud, she fell to the ground and left a big pit on the ground. Xiao Zixuan turned pale but didn't dare say a word. The Luo Feng kingdom people were on Yuan Luo Feng's side, so they were very angry at Xiao Yefeng's stupid words and wished she could be beaten to death. As for the third prince of the Tianqi kingdom and the others, maybe they were so frightened by Yuan Shao's presumptuous behavior that they didn't dare to mess with them. Only Cheng Feiyong of the Jinyang kingdom winked at a strong master standing behind him. That man immediately jumped out and attacked Yuan Shao head-on from the sky. Yuan Shao looked up at the old man falling from the sky, and a cold gleam flashed through his cold black eyes. Boom. The old man's attack, with a strong wind, immediately blew off Yuan Shao's mask. His pitch-black hair was fluttering in the gale and slowly passed over his handsome face. At this time, Xiao Yefeng had been taken out of the pit by Xiao Zixuan. Her body was broken, and blood was pouring from her mouth. Fortunately, Xiao Zixuan carried spiritual herbs with him. They couldn't heal Xiao Yefeng's injury but gave her the strength to speak. Ghost Emperor, you ugly monster, you just retaliated against me because I didn't want to be your concubine. Do you think the woman next to you really love you? No woman will like an ugly monster. Any woman who is willing to stay with you is only for your strength. I'd rather die than marry an ugly monster. As Yuan Shao turned his back to Xiao Yefeng, she didn't see his face when the mask was taken off. She just heard the gasping sound around her. Xiao Yefeng sneered in her heart. She thought the people must be scared by the Ghost Emperor's ugliness. However, hearing her words, the people around her all looked at her with strange eyes as if she had said something stupid. As Xiao Yefeng was puzzled, the man slowly turned around. In an instant, Xiao Yefeng's face stiffened. She held her breath and widened her eyes. Her trembling lips revealed how shocked she was. What kind of face was this? It was as perfect as a god's and almost flawless. His black eyes were as cold as hawk's eyes in the night. A single glance of him would make people's hearts miss a beat. Xiao Yefeng had seen a lot of handsome men, but this man was the most handsome man that she had ever seen. He was so handsome that he didn't look like a human being. Why? Xiao Yefeng covered her aching heart with her hands and said painfully, why do you wear a mask even though you are so good looking? I see. You must have been testing me, to see if I cared about your appearance or not. Up to now, Xiao Yefeng still stubbornly believed that her father forced her to marry the Ghost Emperor as a concubine because the Ghost Emperor fell for her. Unfortunately, she didn't agree because she thought the Ghost Emperor was extremely ugly. Yuan Shao looked at Xiao Yefeng expressionlessly, pulled young Luo Feng into his arms, and gave a gentle smile. Chapter 1956. Death of Xiao Yefeng 2. You think too much. It's just because over the years so many women pester me that I can't kill them all, so I put on a mask when I walk outside, so that my wife won't feel unhappy. You think too much. His words almost drove Xiao Yefeng crazy. Her eyes were all red and she tried to walk towards Yuan Shao several times, but she fell to the ground again because of her heavy injuries. Why? Why was it like this? She wouldn't be so upset if the Ghost Emperor was really an ugly monster, but he was so young, handsome and powerful. How could she reconcile herself to this? Besides, she was so close to becoming his woman. Feng, Chao Zixuan supported Xiao Yefeng with his hands and looked up at Yuan Shao. My sister knows she was wrong. Please spare her life. Besides, this is Fengyun City, and the strong masters of the Jinyang Kingdom won't allow you to kill her. As he said this, Chao Zixuan looked at the old man who just attacked Yuan Shao only to find he was standing still at the side. His expression made it clear that he would attack Yuan Shao if Yuan Shao dared to attack Xiao Yefeng. Chao Zixuan softened his tone, Ghost Emperor, I know you're powerful, but our Ziyu Kingdom is not weak. My father respects you very much, and even wanted to marry Fenger to you. If you kill my sister, I'm afraid the Ziyu Kingdom won't let you off. At this moment, Chao Zixuan thought a lot. The Ghost Emperor was so young and powerful. If he married his sister to him, the Ziyu Kingdom would grow in strength and surpass the Jinyang Kingdom soon. His sister knows now that she was wrong, so she wouldn't make the same mistake again. Feeling the anger in Yuan Shao, young Luo Feng clenched her fists and cast a cold glance at Chao Zixuan. There was a wicked smile on her face. Sorry, I am very narrow-minded. He can only have me as his only woman in his life. If anyone dares to step between us, then I'm sorry I won't let her get away with it. Chao Zixuan turned slightly pale and forced a smile. Miss, I'm afraid you don't have a say in this matter. Yuan Shao held young Luo Feng more tightly. When he looked at young Luo Feng, his eyes were filled with earnest and warmth, but when he turned to Chao Zixuan, he looked as cold as ever. She can decide everything of my life. If she wants me to die, I will die for her. If she wants me to live, then no one will be able to kill me. Even my life is hers, and you said she didn't have a say in this. Even his life was up to her, let alone anything else. Yuan Shao knew that young Luo Feng said those words in order to prevent any more women from bothering them. So he didn't mind emphasizing it again. Had it not been for this, he would have killed these people. Fenger, I'll deal with those women lest your hand gets dirty. I'll solve those unwanted admirers myself. As his figure flashed, Yuan Shao had reached the front of Xiao Yefeng. Before the old man of the Jinyang Kingdom had time to react, Yuan Shao had put his hand on Xiao Yefeng's head. With a violent twist, her head was wrung off by him, and blood gushed out. Everyone was dumbfounded, and some people couldn't stand the scene, and ran to the side to throw up. Yuan Shao looked at the head in his hand, then looked at young Luo Feng and said innocently, I just moved my hand and she died. I didn't mean it. Chapter 1957. Death of Xiao Yefeng 3. The corners of Yun Luofeng's mouth twitched. He just moved his hand and she died. Moved his hand. However, looking at his innocent look, Yun Luofeng didn't blame him. After all, even if Yun Xiao didn't kill her, she wouldn't spare her life. She stopped him before just because she wanted to solve her herself. It's all right, she deserved it, Yun Luofeng said indifferently, shrugging. It seemed that to her, killing a person was as simple as taking a mouthful of food. Chao Zixuan was stunned. He looked at the girl lying in a pool of blood and suddenly felt so grieved and angry. Even if he didn't like her, she was his biological sister. And she was just killed like this before his eyes. However, Chao Zixuan knew what he was capable of. No matter how angry he was, he dared not utter any offending word. The rest were also shocked that Yun Xiao would kill Xiao Yefeng so decisively even under the threat of the strong masters of the Jinyang kingdom. Boy! Cheng Feiyong was so angry that he jumped to his feet and shouted in a cold voice, "You really don't take my orders seriously." He wasn't angry for the death of Xiao Yefeng. What did Xiao Yefeng's life have to do with him? He was just angry that Yun Xiao dared ignore his order and kill in front of him. How could he bear it? However, without even looking at him, Yun Xiao walked to Yun Luofeng's side. His cold bloodthirsty eyes showed some warmth and he looked at the woman. If you want to be the leader of the four kingdoms, I'll subdue them for you. Yun Luofeng shrugged, I prefer to do it myself. The man paused and gave a faint smile, okay, then I'll accompany you. If you want to conquer the world, I will accompany you. I will be your vanguard and remove any impedance to your great plan. Their arrogant conversation aroused public anger. Cheng Feiyong clenched his fists and his eyes were so cold and fierce. Just then, Princess Jinyang suddenly whispered to him, Father, the princess of the Ziyu kingdom is dead. We don't need to waste time for a dead person. We'd better start the Four Kingdom tournament as soon as possible. This remark brought Cheng Feiyong back to his senses. Yes, now for him, the Four Kingdom tournament was the most important thing. As for this man, he could settle the accounts with him after the Four Kingdom tournament ended. Since my daughter intercedes for you, I'll let you off this time. Cheng Feiyong gave a cold smile and a cold gleam flickered across his domineering eyes, but you seem not to be from the Four Kingdoms, so you're not qualified to attend the tournament. The man was so strong that even Jinyang couldn't match him in strength. Just in case, he couldn't let the man attend the tournament. Yun Xiao looked at Cheng Feiyong expressionlessly, and a murderous aura gradually surged out of his body. It was as overwhelming as a storm. People around suddenly felt choked, as if there was a hand clenching their hearts and made them unable to breathe. Suddenly, a hand pressed against the back of Yun Xiao's hand. He turned his head only to see the familiar wicked eyes. This is my battle, Yun Xiao, I can't always rely on you, I want to rely on my own strength to conquer this world. The woman's eyes were so firm that Yun Xiao took back his murderous aura and nodded obediently, okay, it's up to you. Chapter 1958. Death of Xiao Yefeng 4. Yun Luofeng released Yun Xiao's hand and slowly walked toward Qi Su and the others. Take away the corpse of the princess of the Ziyu kingdom. Cheng Feiyong distastefully glanced at the corpse lying in the pool of blood and asked with a frown, Fourth prince, what's your decision? Chao Zixuan cupped his fists. His eyes were red as he replied, Your Majesty, please permit my sister to remain inside Fengyun City for a few days. I will bring her back to our kingdom after the tournament. Xiao Yefeng was already dead, and he absolutely could not lose the qualification to participate in the tournament. All right, Cheng Feiyong nodded. Jen permits the princess to remain a few days, but I don't wish for her to tarnish the rest station, do you understand? Thank you, Your Majesty. Chao Zixuan's eyes swept toward Yun Xiao and Yun Luofeng, hatred and animosity hidden in his lowered eyes. The Four Kingdom tournament was an opportunity. He would make Yun Luofeng get a taste of his revenge. She must pay for her mistakes. The Four Kingdom tournament is next. Cheng Feiyong's voice suddenly turned severe. As everyone knows, the Fengyun continent has been leaderless, causing the current Fengyun continent to be very chaotic. Many scattered experts have formed a team together and plan to be enemies with our Four Kingdoms. Normally, once a cultivator broke through to heavenly god level, they would be absorbed into one of the 4 kingdoms, but there were some experts who were unwilling to submit to other people, so they escaped the 4 kingdoms and went into hiding. And now, those experts formed a team and planned to overthrow the 4 kingdoms. This was why Cheng Feiyong summoned the 4 kingdoms and planned to establish a leader. Everyone, don't worry, whichever kingdom wins this tournament will become the leader of the 4 kingdoms and command the 4 kingdoms. No one would dare to disobey. Cheng Feiyong's voice was powerful, and his face was brimming with confidence. In truth, he gave this order for another reason. He wanted to utilize the other kingdoms. But he understood that it would be very difficult to win over the other 3 kingdoms without an objective. Coincidentally, at this time, those scattered experts started causing trouble for the 4 kingdoms. As a result, he used this excuse to make the Jinyang kingdom truly rise above the other kingdoms. As for failure, he did not consider it at all. To Cheng Feiyong, there was not a single prodigy in the 4 kingdoms who could win against his daughter, Princess Jinyang. Hence, Jinyang could certainly win the leadership position for him. Jinyang's cool voice rung in the silent plaza, "Imperial Father, it is getting late. It would be better for us to start the tournament soon." Perhaps on purpose, Princess Jinyang's eyes flitted over young Luo Feng's face, caution entering her eyes. The only one present who she could possibly consider to be a formidable opponent was this woman. However, she would only accept victory from this battle and absolutely would not accept failure. When she thought of the consequences of failure, Princess Jinyang's heart would be harshly squeezed, and she would clench her fists tighter. Everyone, the content of the tournament is very simple. The tournament will be held inside the Forest of Heaven's Trial. The subject was jointly proposed by Zhen and the other emperors. We also placed the imperial jade seal of each kingdom inside the forest. Cheng Feiyong continued solemnly saying, "In the process of finding the imperial jade seal, you can not only take away another kingdom's jade seal but also steal it from someone's possession. Whoever obtains the most jade seals will become the winner. If everyone can only obtain 1 jade seal, then whoever returns to Fengyun City first will win." Chapter 1959, Yun Yueching 1. The entire plaza quieted down due to Cheng Feiyong's words. The Forest of Heaven's Trial was the most dangerous place in this continent. Anyone who went to the Forest of Heaven's Trial would have a brush with death. No one expected the 4 kingdoms would use this forest as the arena for the 4-kingdom tournament. Everyone can be at ease. Cheng Feiyong lightly smiled. The hiding spots of the jade seals will not be deep inside the Forest of Heaven's Trial. As long as you don't go deep into the forest, you won't encounter danger. Hearing this, everyone relaxed. The rulership position of the 4 kingdoms was very important, but they were more unwilling to encounter danger. Princess Jinyang's expression remained indifferent from start to end. She surveyed the various participants and when she saw them clearly relaxing, a derisive smile slightly turned up on her lips. When her sight landed on young Luo Feng again and saw that she was still wicked, aloof, and calm, a glint of admiration flashed in her eyes. A woman like her truly stood out from the masses. However, she wondered whether they would be friends or enemies in the future. "I will go with you." Yun Xiao slowly walked next to Yun Luofeng and earnestly looked at her. Seeing the determination in the man's eyes, Yun Luofeng knew that even if she rejected him, this man would now allow her to go to the Forest of Heaven's Trial by herself. She purposefully lowered her voice and said, "You can secretly follow me. Don't let anyone discover you." Okay. Yun Xiao's expression was firm. Even if Yun Luofeng declined, he would still secretly follow her. That was the only way he could relax. "Right, Yun Xiao." Remembering something, Yun Luofeng said, "Mo Qiancheng is here as well." Mo Qiancheng. This name made Yun Xiao frown, but he did not say anything and pulled the woman into his arms. His voice was resolute. "I don't care how many men covet you, as long as you belong to me alone, it's enough. No matter how many men want to obtain you, as long as your heart stays with me, what do I have to be dissatisfied about?" Yun Luofeng's heart skipped a beat. This man's desires had always been very simple. He never restricted her growth and never eradicated the men that appeared beside her. He had always believed that it was enough for her to have only him in her heart. Cough, cough. Chi Su dryly coughed, embarrassment on his face. "If you guys publicly display your affections like no one is present, shouldn't you at least consider our feelings?" I am fine, but the second prince is still a bachelor. Should you guys really do this? Qi Ling did not think too much about this originally, but after hearing Qi Su's words, the corner of his lips involuntarily twitched. He suddenly realized that these people's public display of affection truly saddened him. At this time, Cheng Feiyang had laid down orders for everything he needed to, slowly stood up and said, "The experts of the Jinyang Kingdom will bring you to Forest of Heaven's trial. In half a month, we will regather at Fengyun City." The Forest of Heaven's trial was not far from Fengyun City, only several hundred meters away. This was why they chose the Forest of Heaven's trial. However, when Qi Su heard the name, Forest of Heaven's trial, his features shifted and sadness rushed out of his heart. Back then, his teacher went missing without a trace after going to the Forest of Heaven's trial. Now, he was stepping inside that place. He wondered if he could find her tracks. Chapter 1960, Yun Yueching 2. Forest of Heaven's Trial. Deep in the forest of a valley, a woman was sitting cross-legged with her eyes closed. Her white clothes drifted in the air. In contrast to Yun Luo Feng's languid wickedness, this woman had a more unworldly quality. Suddenly, an imposing aura pierced down from the sky, causing her eyes to shoot open. A cold glint appeared in her eyes as she icily stared at the eerie sky. "Since you found this place, why are you hiding? You can come out now." In the sky, the figure of a woman in a green Lucian dress appeared. There was disdain on the woman's face as she haughtily looked down on the woman in white, the corner of her lips slightly turned up. "Yun Yikan, I didn't expect you to hide inside the Forest of Heaven's trial. Our president taking a liking to you is your fortune. Don't be impudent. I truly don't understand how you are charming to the point of making president this infatuated with you." Yun Yueching was expressionless. "I don't love him. It's as simple as that." In truth, she also did not know why she could not raise any interest toward any man. It was as though there was a person hidden deep in her heart. However, no matter how hard she tried, she could not recall that man's appearance. There was only a blurry figure shocking the neurons in her brain. Yun Yueching. The woman in green was trembling from anger. She fiercely glared at Yun Yueching. "Humph, I came to find you for something else. I remember that before Master passed away, he handed you a stamp. Hand the stamp over, and I will spare your life." Yun Yueching slowly stood up from the ground, her white clothes making her ephemeral like an immortal. Her expression was very calm, not a single ripple in her eyes. The four kingdoms govern the Fengyun continent, forcing any heavenly god-level spirit cultivators to join a kingdom. Master established the Freedom Alliance to protect the freedom of people who were unwilling to join the imperial families. However, after Master passed away, you went against his wishes and wanted to unify the whole Fengyun continent. What is the difference between you and those four kingdoms? Yun Yueching's voice was very forceful as she pressed closer toward the woman in green. "Because I was unwilling to wallow in the mire with you all, you wanted to eradicate me. Yet you still insist he loves me." 3 years ago, she left her disciple to head to Forest of Heaven's trial to find medicinal herbs. However, after she found the herb, someone sent her a letter, claiming Master was seriously ill and had her return to the Alliance. Who would have expected it to be an annihilation waiting for her inside the Alliance? Before Master died, he handed a stamp to her. She initially did not know the current president, also her senior brother, had the ambition of a wild wolf. To obtain the stamp, he had no scruples against seriously poisoning her. They took advantage of her poisoned state and heavily injured her. She went all out and managed to escape the Alliance. In the end, she chose to return to the Forest of Heaven's trial to recuperate. Yun Yueching, you don't have a choice. In accordance with the president's order, I came to retrieve the stamp. The woman in green arrogantly raised her head and continued, "Moreover, President truly likes you. If you only handed the stamp over back then, the president wouldn't have hurt you and would also give you the antidote. Unfortunately, you're too disobedient. The president is Master's eldest disciple, so it's natural for him to inherit the Alliance. You are nothing but a newcomer who only joined the Alliance for a little over 10 years. Why should you take over the Alliance?" Yun Yueching quietly chuckled. "I might not know what liking is, but I do know that liking someone means being willing to give everything to that person. They also would not harm the person they like at all. He merely wants to possess me, he doesn't like me." Chapter 1961, Yun Yueching 3. It was as though there was once a man who truly loved her. He loved her more than life. Why couldn't she recall it? Yun Yueqing rubbed her aching forehead, her brows slightly furrowed, giving her a pitiful look. The woman in green clenched her teeth. She truly did not understand what was so good about this flirtatious fox. Why did the president like her so much? An impertinent woman like her did not deserve the president's liking at all. Yun Yueqing, if you are stubbornly unwilling to hand the stamp over, then don't blame me for being impolite. The woman in green snorted. Yun Yueqing was unrivaled amongst other reverent god-level cultivators. No one could defeat her, causing her reputation to be very widespread on the continent. However, Yun Yueqing had not recuperated from her serious injuries yet, so how could Yun Yueqing be a match for her? Boom. Seeing the woman in green about to act, Yun Yueqing's aura rushed out of her body. Her gaze was as cold and cutting as a sharp sword. She exerted a pressure on the woman in green severe enough to cause her to be unable to breathe. Panic flashed through the woman's heart. Wasn't she still injured? Where did her powerful aura come from? Long Xia, do you really think you can do as you please simply because I'm seriously injured? Back then, I, Yun Yueqing, was able to defeat several dozens of reverent god-level cultivators with my strength alone. What effort do I need to deal with someone insignificant like you? Yun Yueqing's lips were slightly turned up as she aloofly watched Long Xia. Trepidation flashed through Long Xia's eyes. You are fine. You want to know whether I have my previous strength? Test it if you dare. If you had not poisoned me, I wouldn't fear going against 100 of you at the same time. Yun Yueqing pressed a few steps closer to Long Xia. Long Xia staggered back. She was used to being prudent, so she did not dare to act before knowing for sure whether Yun Yueqing had recovered yet or not. However, she was unwilling to be weak and concede, so she bit her lips and said, I know you accepted a disciple in the Luo Feng kingdom. If the president didn't have to take care of important matters these past few years and also needed to comfort the old geezers inside the alliance, he would have sought trouble from that disciple of yours long ago. The cold glint in Yun Yueqing's eyes resurfaced, and killing intent freely burst out. However, Long Xia coldly chuckled. I don't mind telling you one thing. Recently, in order to deal with the Freedom Alliance, the Four Kingdoms started plotting to elect a prodigy to lead the Four Kingdoms. Hearing this, Yun Yueqing halted and icily watched Long Xia, waiting for her following words. An president sought out the emperor of the Jinyang Kingdom, Cheng Feiyang, earlier and had him use the Forest of Heaven's trial as the arena for the tournament. Soon, the prodigies of all the kingdoms will come here. Long Xia slightly lifted her chin. According to a reliable source, your disciple is among them. Yun Yueqing slightly narrowed her eyes and tightly clenched her fists. As for the Forest of Heaven's trial, it will be their burial grounds. Yun Yueqing frostily looked at Long Xia. You said Cheng Feiyang schemed with you guys. How does that benefit him? Of course it benefits him. The president promised Cheng Feiyang he would help him raise his strength to reverent god level. You should know Master has a secret technique that can allow someone to rapidly reach reverent god level. However, this secret technique has repercussions. The receiver of this technique will slowly wither to death in a few years. What is laughable that the fool, Cheng Feiyang, firmly believed in it without any doubt after seeing President use this technique on someone in front of him. However, the President deceived him and said the target of Freedom Alliance is merely people from Luo Feng Kingdom. As the fiance of a princess from Luo Feng Kingdom, Qi will certainly join as well. As for electing a leader of the Four Kingdoms, our Freedom Alliance won't participate in it. Chapter 1962, Yun Yueqing 4. Unfortunately, what she did not expect was that Qi did not come with the Luo Feng Kingdom and came with the Tianqi Kingdom instead. Yun Yueqing closed her eyes. A while later, she reopened them, her clenched fists were lightly trembling. Are you done? If you are, then immediately scram. Boom. The all-enveloping aura slammed into her, causing Long Xia's expression to shift again. It was as though she could not breathe under this pressure. Yun Yueqing, I will let you gloat a little more. One day, I will make you kneel before me and beg. She furiously glared at Yun Yueqing before turning around and disappearing in the sky. Yun Yueqing was afraid she would turn back, so she did not withdraw the layer of pressure. A long while later, after knowing Long Xia would not return, Yun Yueching grew limp and could not stop herself from falling onto the ground. At this time, a little tiger with blood-colored stripes treaded out of the forest. Other spirit beasts all revealed themselves one by one and walked to the front of Yun Yueching. The tiger gently licked her cheeks. "I'm fine, don't worry about me." Yun Yueching smiled. "I used my aura to force her to leave, but I don't know whether she will come back in a few days. If she does, you must hide well and don't allow yourself to be seen. I don't want danger to be brought upon you because of me." The little tiger looked up and worriedly watched Yun Yueching. Although these spirit beasts did not say anything, Yun Yueching could still detect their worry. "In a few days, my disciple should come to the Forest of Heaven's trial. Pay closer attention then. If his life is in danger, come and inform me. Otherwise, help him if you can." Little tiger nodded. His enormous body laid down, allowing Yun Yueching to lay against him to rest. Yun Yueching petted the tiger and turned to look at the spirit beasts. She wryly chuckled, "Little tiger, in truth, my injury continues to worsen. The poison from back then was not detoxified, so I don't know how much longer I can live. My biggest regret in life is that I was unable to recover my memory and can't recall my family." Yun Yueching's eyes were laden with grief. "However, I know very well that I have a daughter. Every night in her sleep, she would dream of a little figure tugging her clothes and crying for her to not go. And every time she dreamed of that little figure, pain would grip her heart. After I die, I hope you can leave Forest of Heaven's trial and go find my daughter and also obey her." In truth, she had been searching for more than 10 years already. How could she count on the spirit beasts of Forest of Heaven's trial to find the family that she could not find herself? She might have forgotten her past already, but a few scenes would occasionally flash through her mind. Those scenes revealed that her daughter could not cultivate, just like Xiaolinger. This was why she hoped for the spirit beasts from Forest of Heaven's trial to find her and protect her for the rest of her life. "Woo woo." Little tiger sobbed and rubbed his head against Yun Yueching, his eyes filled with tears. The other spirit beasts also uttered lamenting cries. At the same time, inside the rest station of Fengyun City, Cheng Feiyang fell ill at ease. He could not help but think something was about to happen. "Your Majesty, Sir Wu Zun is here." Cheng Feiyang was briefly taken back before saying, "Quickly invite him in." Chapter 1963, Yun Yueching 5. The Jinyang Kingdom was different from other kingdoms in that they possessed 3 reverent god-level experts. Sir Wu Zun was one of them. An elderly man in a long, gray robe entered and directly asked, "Your Majesty, I am very confused about one matter. Previously, when we discussed the tournament in the Jinyang Kingdom, it wasn't held inside the Forest of Heaven's trial. Why did you change the location at the last minute and didn't discuss it with me?" Cheng Feiyang's expression shifted. He knew he could not conceal this matter from Sir Wu Zun in the end, so he did not hide it anymore and told him about everything in details. "Idiot." Hearing Cheng Feiyang's narration, Wu Zun's face drastically shifted. "Don't you know what kind of person the new president of the Freedom Alliance is? The president is only 40-something years old, but he is treacherous and vicious. You believe he is luring the prodigies of the 4 kingdoms inside the Forest of Heaven's trial only to deal with Chi Su." Cheng Feiyang was taken back and feebly protested, "Sir Wu Zun, they shouldn't, right? Humph. Do you think the Freedom Alliance doesn't know the objective of the 4-kingdom tournament? And they would be stupid enough to raise your strength for you. Wouldn't they bring trouble onto themselves? I suspect Freedom Alliance wants to catch the prodigies of the 4 kingdoms in one fell swoop," Wu Zun stated between gritted teeth. "Immediately call Princess Jinyang back. Don't let her continue the competition," Wu Zun strictly ordered, a harsh glint flashing through his eyes. "Then the other princes. Our Jinyang Kingdom doesn't lack princes. If you summon everyone back, it would raise other people's suspicion. So we will let them struggle on their own. As for Jinyang, she is the #1 prodigy of the Jinyang Kingdom. Harm mustn't befall her." Yes, only now did Cheng Feiyang realize that he could not resist the temptation of rising to reverent god level and trusted Freedom Alliance too easily. If he really caused Jinyang to run into danger, then the gains would not make up for the losses. Clap clap clap. Suddenly, clapping came from outside the door. Cheng Feiyang and the others' face drastically shifted, and their head turned, discovering a middle-aged man in black entering. Although the man was middle-aged, he was very handsome. His eyes revealed his vicious nature though, and his gaze contained his overbearing arrogance. "It's you." Cheng Feiyang's gaze changed when he saw the man who entered. He asked between clenched teeth, "Tell me the truth. Did you suggest going to Forest of Heaven's trial in order to eliminate all the prodigies of the four kingdoms in one fell swoop?" "That's right." The man did not deny Cheng Feiyang's words. "The objective of the Four Kingdom tournament is to deal with the Freedom Alliance. Why would I allow you to continue as you wish?" A cold glint flashed through Cheng Feiyang's eyes. "So why did you come to find Zhen?" "I naturally want to lend you a hand." The corner of the man's lips slightly turned up. "You have already seen my previous secret technique. It would be a piece of cake for me to create a reverent god-level cultivator. Do you think a mere alliance of the Four Kingdoms will defeat the Freedom Alliance?" Cheng Feiyang's heart skipped a beat. When he recalled the ability that this man previously displayed, cold sweat dotted his forehead. He looked up, wanting to wipe the sweat off of his forehead, but the more he wiped, the more sweat appeared. He could not wipe it clean at all. "Your objective?" Wu Zun frostily looked at the man and asked. "It's very simple. I want the Jinyang Kingdom to obey my orders. Of course, I will fulfill your wish and help the Jinyang Kingdom become the leader of the Four Kingdoms. I will also kill the other prodigies of the Four Kingdoms." The man faintly smiled, his voice carrying an intense killing intent. Chapter 1964. Yun Yueching 6. Wu Zun grew silent as he mulled over the advantages and disadvantages. "You can refuse, but your fate will be the same as the other three kingdoms. Even if you allow Jinyang to return, I'm afraid I will kill her anyway." The man peered up, his eerie voice rung in the study. "However, I have long since heard of Princess Jinyang's fame and also admired him for a while. If you agree, Jinyang will be used for a marriage alliance." "No." Cheng Feiyang's face abruptly changed. "Zhen doesn't agree. Jinyang isn't merchandise to be traded. Zhen will not use her for a transaction." Although Cheng Feiyang was a bit muddled, coveted power a bit much, and was a bit greedy, he sincerely loved his daughter, Jinyang. Moreover, Jinyang is the hope of the Jinyang Kingdom, so how could he give her up? "I can agree to this term on His Majesty's behalf," Wu Zun suddenly interjected from the side. "Sir Wu Zun." Cheng Feiyang was livid. "You can't treat Jinyang like this." "Your Majesty, I know you are fond of Jinyang, but Jinyang is merely a woman, after all. Could it be that you will let Jinyang inherit the Jinyang Kingdom? Before this, I already told Jinyang that she must obtain first place in this four-kingdom tournament. Otherwise, I will make her choose one of the emperors of the other three kingdoms and be married to him. With Jinyang's status, she must be the empress of any kingdom she enters." Cheng Feiyang's eyes were wide open. He did not imagine Wu Zun would say something like that to Jinyang. "Of course, I was merely intimidating Jinyang. Even the three emperors of the other three kingdoms don't have the right to marry Jinyang. Hence, I forced her to obtain first place with everything she's got." Wu Zun glanced at Cheng Feiyang and continued, "Now, the president of the Freedom Alliance is willing to marry Jinyang. What reason do we have to refuse?" Cheng Feiyang's legs weakened, and he fell on the ground, his face drained of colors. In front of other people, the experts of the Jinyang Kingdom would allow him to retain his face. But behind the scenes, he had no authority over the Jinyang Kingdom. "I think you are mistaken." While Cheng Feiyang was embroiled in despair, the man coldly chuckled. "I only want Jinyang to become my woman, not marry her as my wife. The only one who can become my wife is Yun Yueching. Only she deserves my love. Other women can only be concubines." Wu Zun was fairly displeased. However, the Freedom Alliance was gaining in strength nowadays, and this man possessed a powerful secret technique like that, so he had no choice in the matter. Hence, Wu Zun uttered between clenched teeth, "Fine." "Sir Wu Zun." Cheng Feiyang was full of disbelief and could not help but exclaim. Wu Zun appeared to not notice his gaze and turned to the man again. "The princes of our Jinyang Kingdom, can we summon them back then?" The man coldly glanced at Wu Zun. "With the backing of the Freedom Alliance, what need do you have for those princes?" In other words, the Jinyang Kingdom could not keep those princes. The corner of Cheng Feiyang's mouth twitched. His face was full of pain. This round of scheming caused him to not only lose so many sons but also pulled his most beloved daughter into it. What was laughable was that he had no power to save his daughter. Oh right, isn't there a white-clothed woman in the second prince of the Tianqi kingdom's team? Cheng Feiyang's eyes shone. That woman resembles Qing'er too much. Send her to my bed at that time. Even if he could not obtain Yun Yueqing, it would still be quite nice to find a substitute. Who told him to dearly love that cruel woman? Chapter 1965. Jinyang's Warning 1. President, don't worry. At that time, I will certainly give that woman to you as a present, Wu Zun expressionlessly answered. The man loudly chuckled and flicked his sleeve, walking toward the sunlight. The people of Freedom Alliance have already entered the Forest of Heaven's trial. If the Jinyang Kingdom sincerely serves me, I will send someone there and kill the prodigies of the three kingdoms. His order was the same as forcing the Jinyang Kingdom to become enemies with the other three kingdoms. Cheng Feiyang's face turned paler, and his body was incredibly weak. What was called being hoisted by his own petard? He was probably experiencing it deeper than anyone else. Your Majesty, this is an opportunity. Wu Zun glanced at Cheng Feiyang. If the Jinyang Kingdom sends someone there, perhaps it could save those princes' lives at the last minute. In contrast to the Jinyang Kingdom, Wu Zun was willing to give up those prodigies' lives. But if there was a chance for them to live, it would be even better. All right. Cheng Feiyang opened his eyes, his voice weak. Sir Wu Zun, you will personally lead them there and also bring Jinyang back. Wu Zun did not say anything. The current Freedom Alliance was already not as it was back when the old president was there. The alliance of that time merely existed for self-defense, but the current alliance was ready to attack. If they wanted to survive in this continent, they must be ready to give something up. Your Majesty, don't worry. Jinyang will live far better than anyone by following the president of the Freedom Alliance. Jinyang eventually had to be married off, and no one in the four kingdoms was worthy of her. So the president of the Freedom Alliance had to be her best option. Bang! Suddenly, the sound of something hitting a rock was heard outside the door. A sharp glint flickered through Wu Zun's eyes as he harshly shouted, "Who is there?" Panic flashed through the face of the person outside. They were about to flee, but Wu Zun and Cheng Feiyang both ran out in a flash. Empress. Cheng Feiyang was startled. The Empress had followed along with them to Fengyun City, but he did not expect her to have overheard their conversation just now. In truth, while the president of the Freedom Alliance was here, he had already detected the Empress' presence, but he disregarded this insignificant woman and did not want to let this woman's blood dirty his hands. This was why he did not drag the Empress out. Empress, go back. Cheng Feiyang's tone was evidently plagued with panic. Fright was written all over the Empress' ashen face. She kneeled down with a plop. Your Majesty, don't you know Jinyang's personality? Forcing her to be married to someone she doesn't love is the same as forcing her to her death. Empress, this is men's business. Don't interfere. Someone, come and detain her. Cheng Feiyang glanced at Wu Zun standing to the side before hastily sending a look to the Empress. Cheng Feiyang might be completely brainless, and his conduct was incomparably domineering, but he did have sincere affections for his Empress. No, Your Majesty, I beg you to retract your order. Otherwise making this servant watch my daughter be married to the Freedom Alliance, unable to do anything, this servant would rather die. What pained her more was that Cheng Feiyang did not care about his daughter's happiness in order to live. Struggle flashed through Cheng Feiyang's eyes, which Wu Zun coincidentally caught. Your Majesty, those who accomplish great things are not bothered about trifles. Moreover, you are marrying Jinyang off to the Freedom Alliance for the entire Jinyang Kingdom. As for this woman, she has obviously meddled with His Majesty's business. A cold light surfaced in Wu Zun's eyes, murderous aura springing up unbidden in them. Chapter 1966. Jinyang's Warning 2. Sensing Wu Zun's killing intent, panic enveloped Cheng Feiyang's heart. Sir Wu Zun, Empress isn't sensible, but I will keep a close watch on her and won't let her interfere with official business. Sir Wu Zun, please. Without waiting for Cheng Feiyang to finish speaking, Wu Zun acted. He swiftly darted to the front of the Empress, and his sharp nails mercilessly pierced her chest. Under her grudging and resentful gaze, he dug her heart out. Bang! The Empress fell head first on the ground, laying in a pool of blood. She died with her eyes wide open, grievance bursting out of them. No! Cheng Feiyang shouted hoarsely with bloodshot eyes. He tightly clenched his fists and furiously interrogated, Sir Wu Zun, the Empress can't meddle with my decision at all. Why did you kill her? Your Majesty, I have long since felt that this woman could affect you. However, she didn't go overboard previously, so I turned a blind eye to it. However, this matter involves the entire Jinyang kingdom, and I won't allow you to hesitate. Wu Zun's expression was indifferent, distastefully glancing at the woman in the pool of blood. He icily added, moreover, as the emperor, isn't it easy for you to marry another empress? A disobedient woman can only end up like this. Cheng Feiyong took a deep breath. If Jinyang learns about this, do you think she would still listen to our arrangements and marry the president of the Freedom Alliance? If the empress was still alive, we could have used the empress to threaten her. At that moment, Cheng Feiyong's heart was trembling. He could not help but close his eyes, his face drained of colors. He regretted it. He regretted having anything to do with the Freedom Alliance. Otherwise, he would not have lost a daughter, and his wife would not be dead. Only we know about the death of the Empress, how would Jinyang know? At that time, we will say the Empress was kidnapped by the Freedom Alliance and use this to force her and guarantee her willingness to marry into the Freedom Alliance. Wu Zun had made up the excuse already, and a resolute smile was spread across his face. Cheng Feiyong closed his eyes. His features contained a pain that could not be hidden. However, he had no way to resist the powerful Sir Wu Zun at all. Your Majesty, you have seen the fate of the Empress for ruining things. If you dare to say anything to Jinyang, I guarantee Jinyang won't live. Wu Zun threatened. Cheng Feiyong shuddered. A while later, he opened his eyes. I am not only a father, but I am also the Emperor of the Jinyang Kingdom. For the Jinyang Kingdom, I won't speak rashly. I certainly hope so. Wu Zun flicked his sleeve with a snort and headed out of the courtyard. After Wu Zun left, Cheng Feiyong's legs weakened, and he fell onto the ground, sitting. If I knew it would be like this, I wouldn't have brought the Empress here. No one noticed that when the Empress died, her eyes were staring at a corner not far away. In that corner, a palace maid was closely clutching her mouth to prevent herself from exclaiming in shock. Her tears flowed down her face as she unblinkingly looked at the Empress laying in her pool of blood. In truth, the Empress was not eavesdropping by herself. This palace maid was also present. Because they were discovered, the Empress knew she could not escape, so she hurriedly shoved the palace maid away along with a presence-hiding jade pendant that she had obtained by chance. Of course, she did not do this to save the palace maid. She merely hoped someone could send a message to Jinyang. Precisely because of the Empress' actions, this palace maid remained undiscovered from start to end. Chapter 1967, Jinyang's Warning 3. No, I need to go find the princess. After Wu Zun and Cheng Feiyong left, the palace maid swiftly ran toward the exit of the rest station. However, she stumbled right into Mo Qiancheng after a few steps. Mo Qiancheng had just discovered young Luo Feng had left him behind and departed on her own, so he was full of rage already. When was bumped into by this palace maid, he automatically shouted in anger, "Are you blind?" When the Imperial stood up and saw the youth, she thought over it for a moment and asked, "You are a member of the Tianqi Kingdom team?" The Tianqi Kingdom only had 4 people come to Fengyun City, this was no secret. The palace maid had naturally gone to see the excitement as well and remembered the youth standing next to young Luo Feng. Suddenly, the palace maid thought of something and frantically said, "Since you are a member of the Tianqi Kingdom, then hurry and go to the Forest of Heaven's Trial." Forest of Heaven's Trial? Mo Qiancheng tilted his head, his face full of incomprehension. The prodigies of the 4 kingdoms all went to the Forest of Heaven's Trial to participate in the tournament, but this tournament is actually a conspiracy of the Freedom Alliance. All the prodigies inside the Forest of Heaven's Trial will encounter danger. When the palace maid finished speaking, Mo Qiancheng's expression drastically changed, and a vicious aura exploded out of his body. With a swish, he madly darted out of the rest station. This palace maid was too stupid. She only knew Mo Qiancheng was a member of the Tianqi Kingdom but told this secret to him without knowing whether Mo Qiancheng had been bribed by Cheng Feiyong. If it was someone else, she would have been killed already. Unfortunately, though, the palace maid had no other method. With her walking speed, who knew when she would arrive at the Forest of Heaven's Trial? Since she coincidentally ran into Mo Qiancheng, she grabbed onto him like the last straw and spilled everything. Seeing Mo Qiancheng's departing figure, the palace maid let out a sigh of relief, but she did not relax because of this and hurriedly left as well. The forest of heaven's trial stretched as far as one's eye could see. Many prodigies had arrived inside the forest already. As they observed the dense forest, those who had experienced countless hardships were intimidated by it. Your Highness the Princess. Suddenly, a guard moved to the front of Jinyang and quietly said, His Majesty sent a message just now telling you to not enter the forest of heaven's trial. Jinyang was startled, astonishment in her eyes. Why? The competition this time is incredibly important, why does His Majesty want me to withdraw? Sir Wu Zun had said that if she did not win first place, she would be ordered to marry an emperor from one of the other three kingdoms. But she had always been a proud person, how could she be willing to serve the same husband with other women? To not be casually matched to someone by Wu Zun, she could only win and couldn't lose. This subordinate also don't know. It is His Majesty's order to let you secretly leave without telling anyone. Not even my imperial brothers. This is His Majesty's order. Jinyang grew silent. Since a moment ago, agitation had filled her heart. She felt like something had happened. In the face of such an important competition, her imperial father was actually making her withdraw and also didn't let her imperial brothers know. Jinyang took a deep breath. I understand. I will leave in a moment. Then Your Highness the Princess should now. Jinyang did not say anything and slowly walked toward Luo Feng. When Chi Su and the others saw Jinyang's approach, their gaze chilled and filled with alarm, as though afraid she would suddenly attack. After all, they have arrived at the Forest of Heaven's trial already. According to the rules, all the prodigies could attack their opponents. Chapter 1968. Jinyang's Warning 4. What's your name? Jinyang asked, looking at Luo Feng. Luo Feng glanced at Jinyang and faintly smiled. Luo Feng. I admire you a lot. If there's a chance, I must have a fight with you. There was arrogance in Jinyang's aloof features, and her tone was also overbearing. Her loud voice reached everyone's ears. The guard who had originally thought Jinyang was about to say something relaxed after hearing this. The princess had always been competitive, so it was normal for her to send a challenging letter to people. However, what he did not understand was why the princess was so interested in this woman. Could it be, she could contend with the princess? During the guard's moment of inattention, Jinyang cast down her eyes and purposefully lowered her voice. My imperial father ordered me to withdraw and did not allow me to tell anyone. Be more cautious while inside the Forest of Heaven's trial, I can feel that something will happen. Her voice was very quiet, so quiet that only Luo Feng, Chi Su, and their company could hear it. After saying that, Jinyang turned around to leave. Ever since the first time she saw Luo Feng, she had treated this woman as a rival. Regardless of whether they would become friends or enemies in the future, she did not hope for this woman to lose her life inside the Forest of Heaven's trial. Miss Yun, what does she mean? Chi Su was taken back and asked with incomprehension. Luo Feng slightly narrowed her eyes. After you enter the Forest of Heaven's trial, pay attention to your safety. Princess Jinyang wouldn't have warned us for no reason. In truth, before this, Luo Feng did not have many feelings toward Jinyang, but she warned her just now. If it was truly as Jinyang said, then the competition this time likely would not be so simple. We can go now. Jinyang walked to the front of the guard and then indifferently glanced at the other people from the Jinyang kingdom. I have to leave for a bit to attend to something. Enter the Forest of Heaven's trial first, I will come back soon. The other members of the Jinyang kingdom did not notice anything strange in Jinyang's words. In their minds, Jinyang would not abandon such an important competition no matter what. Towards these princes, Jinyang did not have much fondness and held more loathing instead. Hence, she did not remind them and walked toward the base of the mountain. The current Jinyang had no idea that because of her warning for Luo Feng, when she fell into a wolf's den in the near future, a hand would forcefully pull her back out. Jinyang's departure did not cause too big of a commotion among the prodigies. To them, it would be best if Jinyang did not participate in the competition. This way, they had a chance of obtaining first place. In contrast, Luo Feng was deep in contemplation due to Jinyang's words. Qi Yu walked to the front of Qi Ling with light steps and a smile on his face, his head haughtily raised. Second Imperial brother, you better be careful inside the Forest of Heaven's trial. Otherwise, I'm afraid you will be left without an intact corpse, ha ha ha. Qi Yu loudly laughed and then led the troops behind him into the forest. As though Qi Ling did not hear his words, he did not even look up and directly ignored his presence. Let's go as well. Everyone had entered in succession. Young Luo Feng glanced at the people behind her before setting her sight on Mu Shuexin. Come with us. Joy entered Mu Shuexin's heart, and she hurriedly nodded. Okay. Of course, when the people of the other kingdoms overheard young Luo Feng's words, they thought she was coward and wanted to rely on the soldiers of the Luo Feng kingdom to raise her spirits. Chapter 1969, Jinyang's Warning 5. Currently, the Forest of Heaven's trial was exceptionally quiet. Every footstep was clearly heard. Although they encountered a countless number of spirit beasts, those spirit beasts were dealt with by Qi Ling and the others before young Luo Feng needed to act. This whole time, we weren't able to find the hiding spot of the jade seals. If we continue like this, I'm afraid we will enter the deep part of the Forest of Heaven's trial. Qi Su glanced at young Luo Feng and asked, Miss Yun, are we going to continue? Young Luo Feng peered at the air behind her. She could feel a familiar presence there, her lips turning up. Continue going. It was as though having Yun Xiao following her would cause her to become fearless. All right. Qi Su and the others did not hesitate any longer and nodded in response. Everyone continued onward, heading deeper into the forest. The deeper they went, the stronger the spirit beasts that they encountered. Young Luo Feng collected her thoughts and did not lower her guard anymore. Miss Yun, look. Suddenly, Qi Su pointed at a large bird flying in the sky, excitement in his eyes. Look, isn't that bird holding a jade seal in its mouth? Hearing this, young Luo Feng looked up. Immediately, a giant, fire-colored bird flying above them entered her sight, the jade seal in its mouth extremely distinct. This fire bird probably picked up the jade seal inside the forest by chance and did not know its use, so it took it and left and coincidentally flew past them. Qi Su, shoot that bird down. All right. Qi Su's hand raised, and a stream of spirit energy gathered in his palm and transformed into a sharp sword, shooting toward the fire bird with a bang. Instantly, the fire bird released a lament and fell down from the sky, harshly landing on the ground. In truth, Qi Su and the other people had held their strength back this whole journey, except for the spirit beasts who wanted to kill them. Then, he would give them a taste of their own medicine and kill them. Toward spirit beasts like the fire bird who did not provoke them, he merely injured them and did not harm their life. It's truly a jade seal. It's the jade seal of our Luo Feng kingdom. Mu Shuexin was ecstatic and swiftly walked toward Qi Su with a smile on her face. After thinking over it, Mu Shuexin took the jade seal and handed it to young Luo Feng. Miss Yun, I will give this jade seal to you. Instead of letting other people unite and lead the four kingdoms, I would rather that person be you. Young Luo Feng did not say anything decorous and put away the jade seal. Let's continue. Maybe their luck was too great, but not long later, they found a cave and discovered the jade seal of the Jinyang kingdom was inside, managing to obtain the jade seal without much effort. There were a total of 4 jade seals. Young Luo Feng had obtained 2 already, meaning she had a 50% chance of winning. Just as they continued walking forward, they suddenly discovered people from the Jinyang kingdom had started fighting with Qiao Zixuan of the Ziyu kingdom. Qian Zixuan, hand over that jade seal. A prince of the Jinyang kingdom severely shouted with a harsh expression. If you want to obtain the jade seal, then rely on your own strength. What's the use if you're powerless? Qian Zixuan fearlessly retorted. Chapter 1970, Jinyang's Warning 6. If Princess Jinyang was here, he would be more careful, but Princess Jinyang had yet to enter the Forest of Heaven's trial, so why would he fear the people before him? Qian Zixuan, you are digging your own grave. The prince of the Jinyang kingdom snorted and derisively declared. Qian Zixuan was about to rebut when he suddenly noticed young Luo Feng in her company. He started briefly before sneering, Cheng Li, the Tianxi kingdom and the Luo Feng kingdom's teams are here too. They must have jade seals in their possession too. How about we team up to deal with them? As soon as Qian Zixuan recalled that Yun Xiao killed Qiao Yefeng, his teeth would clench from anger, and a cold glint would surface in his eyes. Cheng Li, a prince of Jinyang Kingdom, glanced at young Luo Feng and was clearly mulling over Qian Zixuan's suggestion. It took a while before he spoke. Since it's like that, then we will first steal hers first. The 4 kingdoms had gathered. Except for Qi Yu and his group, everyone else had arrived. But clearly, the Luo Feng Kingdom and the Tianqi Kingdom were together, and the Jinyang Kingdom and the Ziyu Kingdom had allied. Young Luo Feng held her arms across her chest, the smile on her lips languid and wicked, and lazily leaned against the ancient tree behind her. You sure you want to fight now? Humph, Qian Zixuan snorted. If you sensibly hand the jade seal over, we will spare your life. The danger inside the forest of heaven's trial was endless, so even if he killed young Luo Feng here, no one would know. Young Luo Feng uncrossed her arms and smiled. Unfortunately, you won't have the chance. Yun Yi. Instantly, a light flashed, and Yun Yi's tall and sturdy figure heavily landed on the ground, his face expressionless. Heavenly God level. He did not hide his aura at all, dumbfounding everyone present. Qian Zixuan gritted his teeth. Mu Shuexin from the Luo Feng Kingdom is nothing, and there are only a few from the Tianqi Kingdom. By teaming up, our strength might be enough to deal with this heavenly god-level person. After saying this, Qian Zixuan ordered the people behind him to charge over. However, before those people could reach young Luo Feng and the others, a figure, dark as a falcon, appeared in the sky and swiftly landed in front of young Luo Feng. The man was handsome and cold with a tall stature. His appearance caused Qian Zixuan's expression to drastically change and fear to bubble up in his eyes. Why are you here? The Ghost Emperor followed along. Don't they know they have violated the rules? Yun Xiao did not say anything. More than that, he did not look at Qian Zixuan at all. He pulled young Luo Feng into the protection of his arms, his handsome face chilling. Someone's here. And there were not merely 1 or 2 arrivals. Before Qian Zixuan and the others could react, they saw countless figures flying toward them from the sky. Their aura was powerful, so powerful that it made the heavens and the earth lose their colors. The people from the Jinyang Kingdom were caught in fear, but when they caught sight of Wu Zun among those people, their fear turned to joy. Sir Wu Zun. Unfortunately, Wu Zun did not deem them worthy of a single glance. His eyes were filled with a harsh light, and a murderous aura emanated from him, completely enveloping the sky and earth. The people from the Jinyang Kingdom finally realized something was amiss and closed their mouths, not saying a single word. Sir Wu Zun of the Jinyang Kingdom, why are you here? Qian Zixuan was startled. He did not think Wu Zun came because he learned Yun Xiao came to wreck the competition. Chapter 1971. Battle between Reverent Gods 1. At that moment, Qian Zixuan recalled Princess Jinyang's sudden departure, and for some reason, unease rose in his heart. More importantly, the people who came with Wu Zun were all Reverent God-level experts. Heavens, since when did so many Reverent God-level spirit cultivators appear in the continent? Ha ha ha, it looks like it's quite a complete gathering, except for that trash third prince of the Tianqi Kingdom. However, forget it, it's not a problem if a trash like that didn't come. Coy laughter was heard and a pretty woman in green clothes walked out of the group of people. The woman swept her eyes over her audience and caught sight of the woman next to Yun Xiao, jealousy instantly flowing out of her eyes. As if it was not enough that a Yun Yueqing existed previously, now, another woman that resembled Yun Yueqing appeared. And the president is already interested in her. Miss Xinyue, can you perhaps spare the prodigies of our Jinyang Kingdom? Wu Zun turned to the woman in green and tentatively asked. This woman was not only the junior sister of the president but also his concubine, so he naturally should not offend her. The president's order is to eliminate all the prodigies inside the Forest of Heaven's trial, including those of the Jinyang Kingdom. She said with an aloof expression, contempt flashing through her eyes. Wu Zun's expression shifted as he looked at the people from the Jinyang Kingdom. He wanted to say something but was unable to say anything in the end. Sir Wu Zun, what's going on? Chen Li was very displeased and tightly clenched his fists. Also, Jinyang said she had something to do earlier, so she left. Did she already know what we are going to face? Wu Zun glanced at Cheng Li and indifferently said, Jinyang didn't know anything, she was merely lucky. The president of the Freedom Alliance took a liking to her, so I had her leave first. Does Imperial Father know about this? Cheng Li asked between gritted teeth. His Majesty knows already. It was His Majesty who reached an agreement with the alliance. The people from the Jinyang Kingdom originally held hope in their hearts, especially Cheng Li. He had great respect and admiration for his father. However, these people told him that Imperial Father planned to give them up. No. Cheng Li tightly clenched his fists and shouted at the top of his lungs, "You are lying to me. I am at least Imperial Father's son. Why would Imperial Father treat me like this? Your Highness the Fourth Prince, His Majesty has his own troubles and has no other choice. This is the order of the Freedom Alliance, we can't disobey." His words were revealing. The Jinyang Kingdom belonged to the Freedom Alliance. They did not have the guts to disobey the orders issued by the Freedom Alliance. Qi Ling's eyes turned sharp. Us coming to the Forest of Heaven's trial is also the conspiracy of the Jinyang Kingdom and the Freedom Alliance. You say you are having the four kingdoms team up together to deal with the Freedom Alliance. But in the end, he became a lackey of the Freedom Alliance himself and wants to capture the four kingdoms at once. That's right. Wu Zun did not deny it. The Forest of Heaven's trial will be your burial ground. However, considering that you are members of the four kingdoms, I will permit you to get to know each other. His voice was very arrogant, evidently looking down on this group of prodigies. The only one who could make him for the cautious was the Ghost Emperor, but even so, he did not think the Ghost Emperor could defeat so many reverent god-level experts by himself. This was clearly something impossible. Yun Xiao stood beside Yun Luo Feng the whole time and protected her in his arms. He coldly surveyed the experts that encircled them, killing intent slowly leaking out of his dark eyes. Chapter 1972, Battle Between Reverent Gods 2. Despair covered every prodigy's face, even the faces of the prodigies from the Jinyang Kingdom turned ashen. They were fighting for their kingdom with everything they had, but in the end, they were abandoned. No, I don't believe it. Cheng Li tightly held his head and screamed in pain, Imperial Father wouldn't treat me like this, he absolutely wouldn't. Where's Jinyang? Where is she? Suddenly, recalling Jinyang who left, rage flitted across his pained eyes. Jinyang must have known about this already, which is why she left well in advance, while they pitifully fought for the glory of their kingdom. Where Jinyang went has nothing to do with you. Wu Zun's face turned colder bit by bit. I only know that everyone who came to the Forest of Heaven's trial today will lose their lives here. Boom. Wu Zun's aura pressed down on them, making them feel like they were being held down by Mount Tai. Cheng Li's face was deathly pale. He could not say a single word and the pain on his face could not be covered up the slightest. Run. Qian Zixuan gritted his teeth and turned around, leaping toward the back of the mountain. However, before he could take more than a few steps, a sharp light attacked him and viciously pierced through his chest. Blood blossomed on his chest, causing his eyes to be extremely wide open. He unwillingly face-planted onto the ground, his life draining out of him. Who else wants to try and escape? Lang Xinyue derisively smiled. There is no one in this world who can escape from me with their life intact. You will naturally be no exception. Except for that woman Yun Yuecheng. However, there were not two Yun Yuechengs in this world. Lang Xinyue's gaze turned to Yun Luofeng once more. This face that resembled Yun Yuecheng so much it made her wish nothing more than to shred it apart. How would she go seduce men then? Leave it to me. Yun Xiao peered down and lowly spoke next to Yun Luofeng's ears. After he said that, he released the woman in his arms, his cold eyes icily looking at the people in the sky. Whoosh. The man unveiled his aura completely. His features were grave and stern, and his long, black robes fluttered with the wild winds. He was akin to a falcon in the dark, his power generating fear in people's hearts. Attack. Don't spare a single person except for that woman. That woman was the president's appointed substitute, so regardless of how much she wanted to kill her, she must control herself. The experts in the sky descended in a swarm, flying towards the people on the ground. Due to Qian Zixuan's death, the Ziyu kingdom was left without a leader. The prodigies, who were famous in their own right in their kingdom, all laid in their own pools of blood under the massacre of these experts. Miss Yun, these people are all reverent god level. I'm afraid it will be difficult for us to escape this time. Qi Ling's face revealed his despair. At this time, the first person he thought of was his deceased wife's younger sister. If he died inside the Forest of Heaven's trial, who else would protect and watch over her from now on? It was likely that she would be sold by those family members of hers again. Young Luo Feng slightly narrowed her eyes and had her arms across her chest as she leaned against the trunk of a tree. Her languid gaze contained a dim light, and there was a smile on her lips. Seeing young Luo Feng's calm expression, joy entered Chi's heart. Is Miss Yun thinking about a method to deal with this group of reverent god-level spirit cultivators? Chapter 1973, Battle Between Reverent Gods 3. No, young Luo Feng dryly answered with a smile. Then what are you thinking about, Miss Yun? I am thinking about how my man is so perfect even when he is killing people. Chi Su was petrified. How could you have the mood to feed dog food to the single dogs present at an urgent time like this? At the same time, Long Xia's expression turned more serious. In the sky, faced with the group of reverent god levels pressure, the man's movements remained very agile and were not forced to stop by any attack. When did a genius like this appear on the continent? Besides that goddamn woman, Yun Yuecheng, there were still other people who could hold their own against so many reverent god-level experts. This won't work. If we continue like this, I'm afraid there will be some unknown variable. Long Xiao's eyes sharpened and she suddenly turned to look at the woman in the crowd, a harsh glint flickering through her eyes. Block that man for me. After saying this, Long Xia rapidly charged toward Yun Luofeng below her. In the sky, Yun Xiao looked down at this scene and a mocking smile turned up on his lips. No one knew his woman better than him. A mere reverent god would be able to injure her. Then she underestimated his woman too much. However, Yun Xiao still acted. He forcefully threw his hand up, and a gale of razor-sharp wind slashed down, darting toward Long Xia. Long Xia had no mind to take care of the attack behind her. She swiftly shot toward the front of Yun Luofeng, a sharp glint flashing through her eyes. She raised her hand, wanting to squeeze Yun Luofeng's neck. However, just before her hand touched Yun Luofeng's neck, a hand firmly grasped her arm without warning. You previously said that not a single person who had come to the Forest of Heaven's trial shouldn't bother to think about leaving. Then, I will return that sentence to you. Boom. In an instant, the woman's body was enveloped in a layer of dragon scale. With a twist of her wrist, her palm slammed against Long Xiao's chest. Normally, according to Long Xiao's strength, Yun Luofeng might not be able to successfully attack her. However, she was careless this time. She never thought that this woman who was merely at heavenly god level would be able to suppress her. Just as Long Xia staggered back a few steps, Yun Xiao's wind attack also approached and sent her body heavily flying back with a bang. Blood endlessly gushed out of her mouth. The woman in front of her was dressed in white dragon scales, her figure awe-inspiring. Her gaze was sharp as she haughtily looked down on Long Xia with her arms across her chest. Long Xiao's face was somewhat pale. Abruptly, she started laughing. I didn't expect you to be so powerful at such a young age. Even that woman isn't a match for your talent. Unfortunately, the president won't spare you. Who told you to resemble her so much? Yun Luofeng slightly narrowed her eyes, a cold glint surfacing. Tell me your objective for coming here. Long Xia closed her eyes. This time, they were truly too careless. There was no way they would have imagined there would be two powerful people like them inside the Four Kingdoms. First was Yun Xiao, who was able to fight back so many reverent god-level experts with his strength alone without growing weak. Now, this woman was only at heavenly god level, but she possessed such formidable power already. Based on these two people alone, she knew this plot had failed. The remaining people from the Four Kingdoms were all stupefied, though Chi Su and Qi Ling knew Yun Luofeng's strength already. Chapter 1974, Battle Between Reverent Gods 4. But other people did not know. Cheng Li's eyes were wide open with astonishment as he dumbfoundedly looked at the handsome, black-robed man in the sky and then at the white-clothed woman standing on the narrow and winding road. His expression turned from its initial despair to hope. However, most of it was due to the shock from the bottom of his heart. Jin Yong was incredibly talented and was referred to as #1 in the Four Kingdoms. However, Jinyang did not have the strength to fend off those reverent god-level experts' attacks and also was not capable of remaining unaffected under the threat of so many reverent god-level experts. Originally, the people of the Jinyang kingdom looked down on Yun Luofeng and her group. They would not have allied with the Ziyu kingdom otherwise, but now, Yun Luofeng and Yun Xiao's power terrified them from the bottom of their hearts. Thankfully, the people from the Freedom Alliance had come in time. Otherwise, they could have committed a mistake they could not make up for in their lifetime. Even without Yun Xiao appearing, Yun Luofeng was able to hold her own against a reverent god-level cultivator. How would they fight her? Could they? If it were not for the idiot Qian Zixuan bewitching him, he would not have wanted to steal the jade seal from Yun Luofeng. Thinking to this point, Cheng Li clenched his teeth from hate. If Qian Zixuan still lived, he would certainly shred that damn bastard into thousands of pieces. Ho ho. Lang Xinyue climbed up from the ground and snorted, her lips turning up into a sneer. Although I underestimated your strength, I won't make things pleasant for you this time. She pulled out a bamboo flute from somewhere unknown and started playing it. As soon as Yun Luofeng heard her playing, she realized Lang Xinyue was playing a beast-controlling song. As expected, as the eerie flute played, the spirit beasts from a radius of a kilometer all madly dashed toward Yun Luofeng and the others post-haste. Chi Su. Mu Shuexin's heart clenched, and she subconsciously grasped Chi Su's hand. Her clear and bright eyes were brimming with worry. Chi Su reversed their hold, enveloping her little hand in his, as though giving her strength. In comparison to other people's various state of panic, Yun Luofeng was standing still in the breeze, calm and indifferent. Her wicked eyes were placid and without a ripple. Why was it called a thousand beast stampede? Everyone gained first-hand experience of it at that moment. Under the mad dash of these spirit beasts, the ground started shaking non-stop, as though all the spirit beasts inside the forest of heaven's trial were flooding out. Lang Xinyue put down her flute, a rivulet of blood spilling from the corner of her mouth, but her voice was mocking. This many reverent god levels added with this many spirit beasts, I would like to see whether you can still handle it. Although Yun Luofeng and Yun Xiao could handle it, other people would be unable to escape death. Yun Luofeng had already geared up to fight, the dragon scale armor wrapped around her entire body, even her face was covered with glowing white dragon scales, making her look awe-inspiring and akin to a general who could vaporize the world. The leader of the group of spirit beasts was a little tiger with blood-colored stripes. He released a low majestic roar and rapidly charged over, a storm of dust flying up behind him. However, when the spirit beasts dashed past the people from the Jinyang kingdom, they did not stop at all. Perhaps due to the odd behavior of these spirit beasts, Yun Luofeng did not take the initiative to act in the end and observe the approaching spirit beasts. Roar! The blood-striped tiger mightily roared and charged toward Lang Xinyue. The aerial beasts started attacking the reverent god-level people fighting with Yun Xiao. Before Lang Xinyue could smile, she froze. She was stupefied by the scene before her and was unable to react even when the spirit beasts reached her. Chapter 1975. Battle Between Reverent Gods 5. It was not until a claw slashed across her face that she exclaimed in shock and angrily shouted, "What are you doing? I am your master. My beast-controlling technique is useless. Impossible, I tested it out just a few days ago." Even the people of the Four Kingdoms could not help but be stupefied, let alone the people from the Freedom Alliance. What was going on? Did the beast-controlling technique backfire on Lang Xinyue? Otherwise, why did the spirit beasts under her control attack the people from the Freedom Alliance instead? The spirit beasts' attacks were very ferocious, and the reverent gods who were previously fighting with Yun Xiao had exhausted a great deal of energy already, so it was not long before more than half of them died. When the blood-striped tiger walked past the front of Yun Luofeng, he unconsciously stopped and curiously looked at her, confusion flashing through his eyes. That's weird, why does this human woman have an aura similar to Mistress Yueqing? Could it be that she is the daughter that Mistress Yueqing has been looking for this whole time? At this time, deep in the forest of Heaven's Trial, Yun Yueqing had fallen on the ground and curled into a ball, her face frighteningly pale. In comparison to the eruption of poison inside her body, her head was embroiled in pain like it was about to explode. It was as though some energy wanted to break out of her mind. The Yun family. Brother Yang, Fenger. Yan Yueqing closed her eyes due to the intense pain, a teardrop sliding down her face. I remember it, I finally remember. She was a daughter-in-law of the Yun family, the wife of Yun Yang. Yan Yueqing's fingers tightly gripped her chest, her heart aching immensely. Her beautiful face was drained of colors, and her complexion was as fragile as a piece of paper, ripping at any time. Should I thank that wonderful senior brother of mine or hate him? If he didn't poison me, I would not have remembered everything when the poison erupted. However, why do I have to remember all those painful things when I am about to die? Over these years, she was able to live unscathed because she kept suppressing the poison. But now, her strength could not inhibit the breakout of the poison anymore. However, she never would have expected to remember everything from her past on the eve of her death. And also remember her husband's death. If I didn't remember anything, perhaps I could peacefully die. Yan Yueqing's vision started blurring, and the world dimmed. Brother Yang, you aren't here anymore, but I have drifted and lived without a purpose all by myself until now. Now, I can finally go down to accompany you. Brother Yang, I'm sorry. I'm coming to keep you company. Yan Yueqing closed her eyes. The split second before her eyes closed, she appeared to have seen a nervous and worried woman on Little Tiger's back. Woo woo. Little Tiger stilled, calls of lament endlessly coming out of his mouth. His teary eyes were full of worry.